All right, guys, so today we're going to start our ratio unit, and woohoo, we're going to get our calculators back. So if you don't have a calculator on your desk, I want you to go ahead, pause this video, go get yourself a calculator because we are going to be using them for our lesson today. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to work on writing ratios and how to use our ratio language. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to define a ratio. And you guys, as we're going through this, need to be filling in your notes paper. And on your notes paper, you're actually going to have to write out the definition. So if you need to pause the video to get the definition written down, that's fine. A ratio is a relationship between two quantities. Okay, so write that in the blank there. We're going to talk about this a lot throughout the unit. A ratio is a relationship between two quantities. Now, a quantity is just some amount, okay? So, for example, some examples of ratios are 22 boys to 20 girls. We're comparing two amounts to each other, okay? 460 miles to 11 gallons of gas. We're comparing those two amounts to one another. One digital device to one student. That's a ratio. We're comparing one amount to another. 4 bears to every 5 foxes. So all of these are examples of what a ratio will look like. All it is a relationship between two amounts. Okay. All right. So what we're going to focus on today is writing ratios, and there are 3 ways to write a ratio. And so you should be filling these in on your notes paper as we go. The first way is as a fraction. Okay. So ratio can be written just like a regular fraction. Whatever comes first goes on the numerator, and whatever comes second is on your denominator. It can be written with a colon, or it can be written in words. Okay, so fill those in. The 3 ways that we can write a ratio are as a fraction, with a colon, or in words. A couple of things to keep in mind is when we're writing ratios as a fraction, all of our fractions always have to be in simplest form. Okay, so that's why we have our calculator out today. We're going to actually have our calculator help us simplify those fractions today. Hey! So anytime we're writing a fraction, we want it to be in simplest form. With a colon is the 2 dots, okay? So it's a 2 dots between the numbers. And then in words, the word we're going to use in between our 2 quantities is the word to. Just like you saw on the first slide where it said boys to girls, or black to red. We're just going to write it with the word to. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at some examples. You just need to watch right now. These are not on your paper. There's nothing for you to do. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to simplify using that calculator. Okay, so get your calculator in your hand. And to simplify a fraction in the calculator is really super simple. So what I want you to do is turn it on, and we're going to hit the B/C button. And when you hit the B/C, I want you to type in 9, and then hit the down arrow and type in your 18. Okay, then you're going to click the over arrow so that you're out. And all you have to do to simplify it is to click enter. And when you click enter, the simplified fraction will pop up, 1/2. All right, so let's try it again. I want you to click B/C and type in the fraction 6/8. So you have the 6 down and then the 8. And then you'll click your over button. And to simplify it, the only thing you have to do is click enter. And it'll simplify it to 3/4. Okay, so using your calculator to simplify, super, super simple. All you have to do is type it in and click enter. Okay. All right. So now that we know how to do that, simplifying our fractions should be a piece of cake today. So let's take a look here. First one we've got, like I said, not on your paper. We're just going to review it all together. It says write a ratio of apples to bananas in all 3 ways. So anytime that I'm writing a ratio, I always like to write it as a fraction first to see if it can be simplified, because anytime we're writing ratios, they have to be in simplest form. So if we're looking at apples, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 apples. To bananas, we have 2 bananas. So as a fraction, that would be 4 apples over 2 bananas. Now, I'm going to type that into my calculator very quickly to see if it can be simplified. So type that into your calculator. We have 4 over 2, okay? Then we click enter, and it simplifies to a 2. Now, we can't leave it as a 2 because our ratio is a relationship of 2 quantities. So we were going to leave that as 2 over 1. There are 2 apples for every 1 banana. So now that we have that written as a fraction, we're going to write it with our colon, or with our words. It's 2, 2, 1. And with a colon, it just looks like 2 colon 1. Okay, so write it as a fraction first, see if it can be simplified. Then we're going to write it with the words and with a colon. Okay, all right, so let's look at another one. We have write a ratio of hammers to nails in all 3 ways. So we're going to count. We have 3 hammers, and then we have 9 nails. Okay, so our fraction would be 3 hammers over 9 nails. Go ahead and punch that into your calculator to see if it can be simplified. We find out that it can be simplified to 1 over 3. That's saying for every 1 hammer, there are 3 nails. Okay, if we're going to write that with words, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. If we're going to write it with a colon, it's going to be 1 colon 3. Okay, all right, from boys to girls, what we're going to do, we're going to count up how many boys we have. So here's 1, 2 guys, and then 1, 2, 3 girls. So our fraction is 2 to 3. Now, I'm going to put that in my calculator, 2 over 3, and all we have to do is click enter to simplify. It does not simplify, so we're just going to leave it as 2 to 3. So if we write that with words, it is 2, 2, 3, and with a colon, it's 2 colon 3. Okay. All right, now this one is a little bit different. It says write a ratio of pears to total fruit. Okay, so if we count, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pears, but it says total fruit, so we need to count everything that's in the bowl, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of total fruit. So there's 4 pears to 10 pieces of total fruit. Now again, we need to check if that can be simplified. So we're going to plug it into our calculator, and all we have to do is hit the enter button, and we find out that 4/10 actually simplifies to 2/5. So then, using the 2/5, we're going to say 2 to 5, and then 2 colon 5 is the ratio for pears to total fruit. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do some whole class examples. So get back to your notes papers, pencils up. We've got our columns here where we can write it as a fraction, see if it can be simplified. Then we're going to write it in words, and we're going to write it with a colon. So first one, it says 6 inches of snow in 7 hours. So we're going to put our inches of snow on the top over our hours. So our fraction is 6 over 7. Okay, we got to test it out to see if it can be simplified. It cannot. So now we're going to write it in words, and in words, that's going to be 6 to 7. With a colon, it's going to be 6 colon 7. Okay, all right, let's take a look at the next one. It says 8 pencils for $12. So our fraction is going to say 8 over 12, and we need to check to see if that can be simplified. So let's plug it into our calculator, and we find that 8 over 12 can be simplified to 2/3. So now, in words, we're going to write that as 2, 2, 3, and with a colon, we're going to write 2 colon 3. Okay, all right, next one says $9 for 3 cans of tuna. We're just going to start by writing our 9 cans of tuna, or $9 over our 3 cans of tuna. And we're going to put that into our calculator and simplify. And that's one of those ones where we get a whole number. But remember, we can't keep it a whole number because we need 2 quantities. So we're going to leave it as 3 over 1. $3 for every 1 can of tuna. Now we're going to write that in words. We have 3, 2, 1. And with a colon, we have 3 colon 1. Okay, so that's how we're going to write our ratios in 3 ways. We've got 3 more to do altogether. So our next one says 11 batteries cost $25. So if we're going to write that as a fraction, we have our 11, as our numerator and our 25 is our denominator. We need to check that in our calculator to see if it can be simplified. All right, after plugging it into our calculator, we find that it can't be simplified. So we're just going to write it in words and with our colon. 11 to 25, 11 colon 25. All right, next one. We have 95 miles on 8 gallons of gas. So first things first, we're going to put it into our calculator, or put it in fractional form. We have 95 over 8. Now we need to check to see if it can be simplified. So when I plug that into my calculator, I get a mixed number. Like I get 11 and 7/8. Okay. Now we can't leave it as 11 and 7/8. We can't leave it as that mixed number because then you're comparing 3 quantities and we just want 2. Okay. I'll give you a little hint. Since the 8 is still the denominator, that tells us it can't be simplified anymore. 95/8 is just going to stay 95/8. Okay. All right. So now that we're going to write that in words, so we have 95 to 8 and 95 colon 8. Okay. All right. And our last one is $25 for 4 books. So we have our 25 on the top and our 4 as our denominator. We got to put that in our calculator and see if it can be simplified. All right, and when we click enter, that's another one that gives us a mixed number, which we can't leave as a mixed number, okay, because we're only comparing 2 quantities. So 25/4 cannot be simplified. 25/4 is as simple as it gets, so we're going to use that to write our in words, which is 25 to 4 and 25 colon 4. Okay, so when we're writing ratios, all we're doing is we are picking out the 2 values that they ask us for, and we're either writing it as a fraction in simplest form, or we're writing it in words with the word to in between, or with a colon in between. Okay, so now what you're going to work on, if you flip over to the back of your paper, you'll notice there are 22 empty boxes. And in those boxes, you're going to go back to the online lesson document, and you're going to click the independent practice link. Okay, you're going to show all of your work on the back of your paper there in the boxes that are designated. Some of them ask you to write it in all 3 ways. Some of them just ask you to write it as a fraction. Some of them just ask you to write it with a colon or with words. So pay attention to what the question is asking you, and that's what you'll put in the box. Okay, so you need to show all of your work on the back of your notes paper. You need to write the original fraction, and you need to show me if it's simplified. Okay, you are going to turn this in for a grade tomorrow. Whatever you do not finish on these 22 questions, that's homework for this evening, okay? So work really hard in class and get that done and get it complete, and you won't have any homework. Otherwise, you'll finish this up for homework. Now, when you get done, you can either give it to me or you can keep it till tomorrow. There are 2 review games for you to play whenever you get finished.